But there are a whole bunch of folks that are not Christian, and they are not Amharic, and they don't have the Amharic culture. But the way the Amharic culture spread was because as the kingdom expanded, those folks who were working inside of the government or with the king or had nearness to the power, they had to adopt the Amharic culture. That's why you have rulers and kings and folks that are powerful inside of what you call Ethiopia that are Oromo, they're Afar, they're Tigray, they're all of those, but all of the success gets wrapped up in so-called Amharic traditions. I could break this down even further if I need to, but I'm not going to stay very long. I just wanted to remind everyone that there is a genocide that is taking place in Tigray. It has been 331 days. Tigray is north of Ethiopia, south of Eritrea, east of the Sudan, and in the hearts of the Tigray people throughout the diaspora. The Tigray people may have left the building of Ethiopia, but there's never going to be an Ethiopia without the Tigrayan people. And if you don't believe me, study the history of who rolled down and fought that Derg. Who showed up and kept fighting Mussolini? Who has fought everyone that has come down across that what you call the Red Sea and made their wealth into that continent? See, the Tigray people are like you got cells in your body, they're like T helper cells, and all they do is attack enemies. That's like the Tigray people. They along with others fought, but they also are the ones that have strong self-determination and just don't roll over and say, you could treat us any kind of way. What is Ethiopia? The answer to that, Ethiopia is an empire. The reason you talking about Ethiopia has never been colonized is because Ethiopia has been colonizing everybody else and within. So it's not white. If you study empire, it don't matter if you white, red, yellow, blue, or green. Empire is empire, and you expand your boundaries and you take over as much as you can take over, and you pillage along the way. What is Ethiopia? Why wasn't it colonized? Because Ethiopia is an empire and they were colonizing everybody else. Y'all thought that there was just one homogeneous group of black folks called Africa. Africa's a continent with at least 54 countries, and with inside of every one of those groups, you got a ton of other groups. So now when you start talking about empire and you start talking about all of this ethnic federation, and I ask, is Ethiopia falling apart? What made Saddam Hussein powerful? What made Muammar Gaddafi powerful? What makes anyone powerful in an environment where there's so much diversity and difference and warring factions and bitterness and hostility? What makes it work is somebody that's powerful, that demands the respect of everyone and knows how to keep them in check and make sure that everybody is not just running around doing their own thing. And inside of Ethiopia, there was a period known as the period of judges, or the period of princes, or you can call it, what is it? Zaminian Mephisant, where everybody was running around in Gondor doing their own thing, a king here every 3 days, every 3 years, and then all of a sudden you've got Tedros, or they call him Theodore in the Western tongue, Tedros, who pulled all that stuff together and consolidated and kept them all in check. Abiy Ahmed can't keep anybody in check. He tried to get Isaias Afwerki to help him, and as you can see, everybody's fighting right now. Because Abiy Ahmed ain't the one who has the power, nor the ability, nor the respect, nor the influence to do anything to keep all of those different ethnicities together, because they hate him. The only ones that like Isaias or like Abiy Ahmed are the ruling class of the Amhara elite. The ruling class of the elite. When they say Ethiopia, they go, oh, we all need to be Ethiopian. One Ethiopia. There's no such thing. There's no self-respecting Oromo who's going to give up their ethnic identity and say, I'm Ethiopian. There's no self-respecting Tigrayan who's going to say, I ain't Tigrayan, I'm an Ethiopian. There's no self-respecting Afar or Somali or any of the other ones that are going to come together and say, let me take off my cultural trappings, give away my language, stop doing what I'm doing, learn Amharic, and if I don't speak Amharic, I'm less than, I'm a slave, I'm dark-skinned, or all these different we call it wonky, all that nonsense to say that they're Ethiopian. To be a ruler in Ethiopia right now, there's two things that you're going to probably have to do. You're going to have to be a Christian, and you're going to have to speak Amharic. And those Oromo leaders and those other leaders that became heads of Ethiopia, they had to convert their religion or practice it in secrecy. I'm just scratching the surface. But basically what I'm sharing with you is that there's a genocide in Tigray. And there's going to be somebody that's going to go in here and say that I don't know what I'm talking about. And I would love to have a one-on-one with them, because I'm telling you the history is given to you by the ruling class and the ruling party. And it's the authorized version of your history or any history. But if you want to know the real history, go talk to my mama in Rama. Go talk to my mama in Rama. When I talked to her, she said, Mish? Mish? You go run that nonsense down to somebody who knows him. Mish? You know, I'd be in Tigray, I'd be on the continent right now had it not been for COVID-19. That's the only reason I'm on this side of the pond. And I probably can't go to what y'all call Ethiopia anymore, because you know, upon arrival, I'm going to get put in the hot box. You think I don't know Abiy Ahmed? I used to live up the street from Abiy Ahmed, and his children and my children went to the same school. So if you think that he's Dr. Abiy Ahmed and he's somehow brilliant, he's not that brilliant. He done partnered with a bully, someone that has no other sense of humanity but to conscript his own people into the military and never let them out. He has no economy. He had Eritrean troops with partners from Abiy Ahmed's, the prime minister, invited a foreign government to come in and fight the people of Tigray because he can't fight them. And they running out with the spoons and the plates and the silverware and the fine china, raping. Of course I can't go back right now. I can't see my mama in Rama. It ain't gonna happen. As soon as I show up, I'm going through the hot box. There he is. Because right now, the leadership of what you call Ethiopia, that's talking about the I don't know, One Ethiopia or the Prime Party or whatever they call that, he has no respect for human rights. You're not safe unless you roll with the party line, and you can ignore that folks is getting raped next to you. You can ignore the folks that are having their infrastructure destroyed. What government goes into another city and destroys their downtown? Goes in and destroys their factories. Goes in and destroys their infrastructure. Goes in and burns their land and cuts down their trees. What kind of leader does that? Well, his name is Abiy Ahmed. And guess what? Abiy Ahmed is not an Amhara. You'd be surprised. Abiy Ahmed is a prime example of what I'm telling you an Ethiopia is supposed to be. An Ethiopian, one, you speak Amharic. Two, you accept the dominant culture. And three, Abiy Ahmed is an Oromo who his own people hate. Right now, the Oromo people are going to war with this government just like the Tigray people are, just like the Somali people are, just like the Afar people are. Everyone is fighting right now because you got a leader that has no respect for his own people, has no respect for human rights, and will resort to genocide while the world watches. Will resort to genocide while the world watches. And here's everybody that's saying, well, what is the United States going to do? What is England going to do? What is France going to do? They're going to continue to collect the spoils while black folks kill each other. That's what they always do. Africa still haven't learned how to speak with one voice. They still paying interest rates on loans that they borrowed from foreign governments that got the wealth from under their own feet. Can you imagine somebody takes all your gold and diamonds and all your resources and then loans you 3 of them and now you owe them 3 zillion of them? Stop the genocide in Tigray. That's what I wanted to share with you. But some of you don't believe me. So I'm going to ask you to believe Amnesty International. And I want you to go to this report, Rape and Other Sexual Violence in the Conflict in Tigray, with the headline, I didn't even know if they realized I was a person. Let me tell you how much hate is in Ethiopia right now. You can have a foreign government come in and attack your own citizens and you'll say hooray. I'm not saying everybody, but enough to make it a problem. If a foreign government comes in and that doesn't unite you to say, hold up a second, Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, isn't that treason? Aren't you supposed to be protecting our borders? But you going into partnership with another foreign land to come in and fight another region in our area? If all of y'all at the same time didn't say, hold up a second, that sounds like, looks like, and feels like treason, then there's something wrong with you. You don't care because it's not happening to you. You don't believe them people over there deserve it, and they deserve to be raped because they animals. They lice. They this, they're that, and they're the other. I can tell you right now, if you look at what's called Ethiopia right now, there are multiple languages spoken there. In that whole area, if you look at the language, the Semitic languages, which, by the way, most of you think that Ethiopia is just a Semitic land. And you follow the story of Solomon and Queen Sheba and the birth of Menelik, not the one that I talked at that discovered or renamed with his wife, Taitu Bital, changed from Feni to Addis Ababa. And by the way, Menelik would have never been the head of Ethiopia had it not been for his wife who was from the north. She was from the north, and she had been in many wars. She's the one gave him courage to fight. His father was defeated by Tewodros, who went and whooped his dad and then took his son and raised his son like he was one of his own sons. I could tell you a lot of these stories. I could tell you the fact that Tewodros had a son. Gerald, guess where Tewodros' son is buried, or used to be? In front of a museum in Britain. Yeah. They took the man. They not only took his property, his crowns, and his wealth. They took his kid. Britain is cold. Y'all been partnering with some folks that ain't got no love for you and got all your stuff. See, these are the stuff folks don't want me to talk about. Tewodros' son, after Britain ran up in there because he jumped bad and he thought that he was going to fight these British. British didn't even want to deal with. They just marched up in there with elephants and folks from India, and they had Chinese building roads, and they had all of the animals, and they went to go up in there to Tewodros, who was running around because he done held some hostages from Britain, the consul, and some missionaries. And they said, let him go. He act like he going to ignore them. They rolled all of that up in there. Remember, at that point, they had colonized half of the world. Some of y'all say Middle East, and some of y'all say Far East, and some of y'all say Near East. All of that is attached to British colonization. Even in the way that you describe the world today. That's the Middle East. That's colonization. That's colonization language. General Napier runs right up over there, all over them highlands, goes up in there. Tewodros does what? Commits suicide. Gerald, he commits suicide. And guess what they did? They didn't stay and colonize that land. They just took all his crowns, took all his wealth, took all the manuscripts. You see, you think these Europeans are so smart. It's because they got all your manuscripts in their libraries. They got all your instructions, your manuscripts, your astronomy, the way that you know about medicine and herbs, and they got your language all in Ge'ez. They got everything. But guess what? They even took the man's son. Just like Tedros took Menelik and raised him, and Menelik come back and become the head of everything. The British took Tedros' son. His son married. That man's son is somewhere buried in front of a museum in Britain somewhere, along with the crowns and the coins and the money and the manuscripts and all of that stuff. I wish somebody would say, Brother Jeff don't know what he's talking about. I'm giving you a doctorate level clinic right now, because what I'm telling you is what these institutions usually bury inside of institutions that you can't afford to go to. And the reason you can't afford to go to them is because they stole all your resources and built their institutions and then said you got to pay to get in them, and you don't have no resources to get into them to see your own crowns. Eritrea done just ran down into Tigray. It's documented. Stole historical items, wealth, destroyed historical sites, all while the prime minister said, that's okay. Abiy Ahmed, the one who used to live up the street from me and the one that our kids went to the same school. Why Brother Jeff can't go to Ethiopia? Because there's a lack of respect for human rights, and they put me in the hot box as soon as I got over there, because they think they got democracy when they got another dictator just like Isaias Afwerki. And you got all these folks talking about Eritrea, and I'm like, and then you got folks that don't even understand what's happening. You got children that have no plans of going back to Africa. They was raised here. They've been brainwashed with the same nonsense that there's nothing of value in yourself or on that continent. Stop the genocide in Tigray. Stop the genocide in Tigray. Is Ethiopia falling apart as you know it? The answer is yes. Everywhere you look, there's a war. There's a war in it and all around it. And Abiy Ahmed is not the king of kings. See, he thinks he's dealing with democracy, but he doesn't know what democracy is. And Ethiopia has never had an opportunity to even develop a democracy before the shift goes back into the shifting. I'ma just go in here and take people's stuff. I'ma just go in here and rape people. I'ma just go in here and deny them their rights, and I'ma just go in here and tell everybody that we gonna be one Ethiopia. Abiy Ahmed ain't the man to make that happen. He thought that he had support of Donald J. Trump, who got beat in a democracy. And now you got the United States of America, you got Britain and France, and you got everybody that's saying, well, is it a genocide? Is it not a genocide? Should we make a speech? Should we make a resolution? Should we do sanctions? They're not going to do nothing until they see who becomes the winner, so they can get on the side of the winning side and make sure that they control that damn dam. Stop the genocide in Tigray. Somebody share this clinic. And to those of you who are raising Ethiopian children in the diaspora, and those of you who are Ethiopian and decide of the diaspora, don't be ashamed of your language if you don't speak Amharic. And if you do speak Amharic, enjoy it and know that you're part of the Amhar region. Don't be afraid of your language, your culture, the way you dance, whether you move your shoulders or you move your feet. And those of you who are adopting Ethiopian children, ask them, are they Afar? Are they Tigarian? Are they Amharic? Are they Oromo? Because there ain't no such thing as Ethiopia. That's an agreement. Ethiopia is an agreement of all of them coming together and agreeing to what? Share resources to protect one another and have alliances and partnerships. And in lieu of that, you have folks that are empowered that will beat somebody else down to make them submit. and that's how you build empire. That's how you build empire. Make sure you make sure you share this. Because when somebody says, this isn't my business, and they use profanity toward me, it's because they probably can't read. It's because they probably think that they're better than somebody else. It's because they're probably on the winning side of what they think is genocide. It's because they're a soldier and they raping somebody. It's because they ran up into somebody's house and they took their spoons and took them up to Eritrea. It's because the economy is crumbling, and what Abiy Ahmed thought was going to be a 2-day war, he said, I'm going to handle this in 9 days. Don't he know them Tigray people will fight him for 9,000 years? They've been there since Aksum. They've been there since Abyssinia. They're there with Ethiopia. And I guarantee you 1,000 years in the future, the Tigray people will still be right there. They fought the Derg for 30 years. Yes, it was those Tigray people who came up out of them hillsides fighting, didn't have no weapons, had sticks, and then they fight a soldier, and then the soldier fall, they take the soldier's gun. Now that stick got turned into a gun. How do I know? I've been there. I've seen it. One day I'll show you the pictures. I told you I studied my doctorate level work up all in that area. I already told you I've been where Haile Selassie, Rastafari, Makanan's son, his father was the governor of Harar. Harar wasn't a part of Ethiopia. That's where Rastafari was born. Right now you got the TDF that has fought, and rightly so. When your mother's getting raped, and when your children are being violated, and your property is being destroyed, and folks stand up to fight and don't wait on a resolution for somebody to say, is it genocide? We need to figure it out. You ain't trying to figure out if it's genocide. You got the African Union right inside of Finfinny, and they can't even look across the street and see a genocide, because even the African Union that everybody sits in and admires and says, oh, isn't that beautiful, was made for and paid for by the Chinese. You didn't even build your own African Union, and then you got folks looking at you with gleeful eyes talking about, isn't that beautiful? You didn't build it, you didn't pay for it, and them Chinese put bugs all inside the furniture. They put the computers in there and had all the information on the computers and going all back into China. A modern day Trojan horse, and you got black folks talking about, we got the African Union. I guarantee you that ain't the union that those Pan-Africanists was thinking about that they got now. What you got is an extension of colonization with some black faces that can't even stand up against genocide that's right there in the country where the African Union is, and nobody wants to talk about this because they're so busy enamored with white supremacy. Stop the genocide in Tigray. Somebody says, Brother Jeff don't know what he's talking about. Tell me which part I don't know what I'm talking about. You going to tell me that Tedros' son wasn't buried out in front of a museum somewhere in Britain? You going to tell me that Menelik wasn't taken from his father, who was a head of Shoah and raised by Tedros, and then snuck away from the camp and was held by as a hero when he snuck away, and then started to battle back and forth? And had Tedros not went to go to fight against those what they call Mahdists, the Mahdi, the Muslims, and got killed in battle, that Tedros would have still continued to dominate? And you're going to try to tell me that them Italians weren't sponsoring and paid for Menelik? You're not going to tell me Menelik wasn't an Italian? Menelik was a black Italian. Wow. They sponsored him. They had the problem Menelik had was, which led up to the Battle of Adwa, was The Italians said that Menelik signed the Watch Hell Treaty, which made Ethiopia a protectorate over Ethiopia. But what the document said in Italian ain't what it said in Amharic. They fighting over, I didn't know it said that. I didn't know it said that. I didn't know it said that. Menelik was a straight Italian, and that's why most of y'all love gelato and spaghetti right now. How are you going to have the bottle of Adwa, but then if I told you this is about the damn dam, how did the Italians still got the water up there called Eritrea and the Red Sea? You can't see that in the daylight with a flashlight, that they had him bought, paid for. Even in the Battle of Adwa, when Menelik and those troops, first of all, let me say Alula, Ras Alula. See, if you want to call me something, call me Alula, Hannibal, Shaka Zulu, or Toussaint L'Ouverture. Ras Alula and the crew and the Oromo had the Italians pinned down, and Menelik don't even instruct he holds the Oromo, who are incredible folks that battle on horses. He holds the Oromo back to not capture the Italians over the pass and lets them get away. Why? Because Menelik's an Italian. Them Oromo would have tore him out the frame. That war would have been over if it lasted 5 days, it'd have been over in 2. If it lasted 2 days, it'd been over in 1. Menelik stopped the Oromo from bum rushing them Italians. When Alula called them to go do it, he like, nah, don't do that. See, you always got black folks fighting on the side of somebody else. Speaking of fighting on the other side of other folks, and somebody's saying I don't know what I'm talking about. First of all, the Italians didn't get defeated by the black folks. I'm gonna break this down, Gerald. When you say that the black folks, or what you all are calling the Ethiopians or the Abyssinians or whatever you want to call it, this collection of individuals that beat the brakes off of Italy, not just once. Italy got a train station called dedicated to the 500 Italians that got beat back off the frames prior to Adwa. I'll break that down at another time. Not only that, Alula beat the brakes off of them Egyptians too. See, you got the Tagaru people got a long history of beating them foreigners back and beating the brakes off of them. But the point that I wanted to make, Gerald, is this. Do you know when they say that the black folks beat the Italians? That ain't true. The Italians had troops filled with black folks. Their whole troops were black. They called them the Ascari. They had a few Italian officers, and they had all African troops, what y'all call battalions. So this was black folks fighting black folks because the black folks was recruited by the Italians to fight black folks. Them Italian troops was black. So you had black folks that were fighting on behalf of Menelik, and you had black folks that was fighting on behalf of them Italians. So in other words, that was black folks fighting black folks, and it's the same today. Black folks is fighting black folks. And the Europeans is tickled pink. Because it's all about that damn. And you think that it has something to do with integrity, democracy, human rights. Why do I have all of these reports? I got the Amnesty International report right now. It's called if I don't know if they realize I was a person. I did a show where I just read parts of this. I'll read it again one day, but it talks about Eritrean troops raping women. It talks about Amhara troops raping women. It talks about the looting. It talks about the destruction. It talks about the terrorization. It's all documented, and ain't nobody doing nothing but writing a report.